This type of Yerushalmi Pesachim in the article Oz Edition where Daf called Chesam Rav, right? The top Yem New Per, Malkum Shanagu, which in the Vilna is on Chav Daud Amid Base, also be in New Per. Malkum Shanagu Lasos Mocha Erev Pesach Pesachim Ana Chatzos. Pesach the custom is to do Melach on Erev Pesach up to Chatzos Osim. You do Melach. Malkum Shanagu Shlosos, the place where they do customs not to Melach Erev Pesach. Ain't osim, we don't do melacha. Makom she'osim, makom she'ain osim, the place where people do not do melacha. So I'm saying makom she'osim, makom she'ain osim, the place where people do melacha, the place where people do not do melacha, or vice versa. Makom she'ain osim, makom she'osim, the place where people don't do melacha to a place where people do melacha. He has the stringencies of the place where he went and the place from which he came. Actually says the opposite here. From the place from which he came and the place to which he went. And person should never deviate on account of coming to bring about a argumentation. Okay, more is going to elaborate on that. Says Steve, it says Sham Tizbach is a Pesach Be'erev. It says there you should slaughter the Pesach on Erev Pesach. Ainli Elahu. How do we know that perhaps only he can sacrifice his Korban Pesach? Minayin shlucho minayin. How do we know Shliach can sacrifice Korban Pesach for him? Tam lomar sham tizbachas. Tam lomar b'shalta uchalta. It says you should cook and you should eat. So it sounds like only cooking and eating you have to do yourself. But shchita, even by a shliach, is kosher. What does this? What does it say? There you should slaughter your Pesach on the eve of Pesach, if you're allowed to do it through a shliach. It's not appropriate for you to be involved with your melacha at the time your melacha your korban is being sacrificed. Also, as less melacha, but they forbade you to do melacha. Says not that you have to actually sacrifice it, but you should refrain from melacha. I wanted to say perhaps pshat based on the continuation of the passage. It says. Kavo Hashemesh Moed. As in perhaps the Darshan Roshim Moed. We're saying that the time of the Korban Pesach, from the time of sacrifice, it is reckoned to be a Moed, and therefore you shouldn't be involved in Malacha. Just like in a Moed, you're not involved in Malacha. Yerushalmi now says the word Avol, which is used not as however, but as it's used in the Chumash Avol Shemanach Chino, indeed, right? Avol, indeed. Also, lasos malacha. They ask you to do malacha. They cut a tiny like that, which it says, lehain kol inish, the heavy lay 11 ayin bikurin. Shami in Chagigo, which the Korban has explained. Kol adam sheyesh lev lavi 18 bikurin. Anybody that's to bring wood because he volunteered to bring to the base Hamikdash or Bikurim, the Homer, such as somebody who says, like 18 Mizbech, somebody who says, come upon me to bring wood to Mizbech, Gizur Maracha, and blocks of wood for the bonfire in the Mizbech. As the Korban explains, it's explained the line before. These are long blocks of wood for the Maracha. So he's not allowed to the day he brings it. Best of is to do eulogies or to fast. Not do malacha. That day was bringing korban. This bringing wood is called a korban eitzim. And therefore, it's you're not allowed to do melacha. It's your yontif. Rabbi Yonah said, "Ilin tmidim the korban sem sheisolinu." So He said the Seminim are the Karbanos of Am Yisrael, right? And im you Kol Yisrael in Yerushalayim should be that all of Am Yisrael should come to Yerushalayim because there are Karbanos and we should be there when they're sacrificing of their Karbanos. So Leisiv Elishos Mimishayer Kos Kulcha. He says 3 times a year you have to be there. Yom Tovim, not for not daily. Im Yisrael Kol Yisrael Yoshim Telim. Do you want all of Am Yisrael to be Yoshim Bata? These two ims, so the line before this im, it's like Hachi. Right? Do you want all Yisrael to sit and be Bata and not to work? Well, see, but it's not going to gotta collect your grain. Mio Seif Lemis who's going to collect the grain. It's interesting again the whole discussion about the Gemara and Brachas about the Machlokas Yishmael Rishon Mechai if it's a mitzvah or rishus, but Yerushalmi is assuming right now that people have to work. It's not going to work. They're just to leave it and to assume that Zochum Lachna Nas is Idea Cher. It's something to work right with Yishmael. You have to worry. You have to go. It's a mitzvah. So what are you going to do? They made an enactment as follows. The original Levim, they put into effect 24 mishmaros. So I'll call, and these are what's called the Mamados. I'll call Mishmar. Each and every one of these watches. There would be in Yerushalayim representatives of Kohanim, Levim, and Israelim, in order that they should be represent Am Yisrael and be our representatives and stand by the korban as the korban is being sacrificed. Tani, we learned Esrim ba'arba elef amud miyushalayim chatzi amud miyericho. It was a pasuk in Divrei Yomim. It only appears as a fragment, really, but the pasuk is in Divrei Yomim. Perak Divrei Aleph Perak Gimel pasuk Gimel and Daled says Vaisafru Halbim Beben Shloshim Shalom Amal Yisrael Google Song Brim Shloshim Shmona Aleph. There are 38,000 male Levim. Male Natzach Beisam Lechs Beis Hashem. From these they took in order to be in charge of the work in the Beis Hashem. Esrim Ba'arba Elef, 24,000. And there were judges. There were judges, policemen and judges, 6,000. Then actually, 4,000 people were gatekeepers. Halim Hashem, and 4,000 would praise Gosh Baruch Hu B'Kelim Asher Sisi Lahalel. The instrument said, I devised for giving praises. So the way you read the Gemara is Tani. Asim Ba'arba Elef, this 24,000 was Asim Ba'arba Elef Amud Miyushalayim, and Amud means an entire a segment, which evidently means your 12,000 came to Shalayim, and B'chatzi Amud means Yericho, and half a segment, 6,000 came from Yericho, and everybody else who came from the rest of Eretz Yisrael, from all over Eretz Yisrael. So the Mamad each week was 24,000, 12,000 locals, 6,000 from Yericho, and 6,000 from the rest of Eretz Yisrael. And after Yericho, he said, Yericho could also produce 12,000 per week. But in order to give Kavod Yerushalayim, they should have precedence. So then they gave Chatzi Amud. They would only bring half an Amud from Yericho and half from elsewhere, so Yerushalayim would have the superior numbers. HaKohanim of these 24,000, HaKohanim Avoda, the Kohanim do Avoda, V'im L'Duchan, and the people would go to the Duchan to do their singing and playing. Yisrael Mochichim Al Hatzmam, and the Yisrael would indicate on themselves by their presence, Shein Shluchim Shel Kol Yisrael, that they were the agents of Am Yisrael, standing there in order to represent them as the owners of the Karbanos Tzibur. The article brings down an interesting suggestion as to why Yericho had this significant stature vis-a-vis Damodos, because it was the first city conquered in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore they gave it a similarity to Yerushalayim, that the Mamodos were primarily from sides from Yerushalmi that came from Yericho, but I think that he references to the Bavli and Tainus Daf Chav Zayin. I think that Yericho served as an overflow location. With people who they couldn't use directly in Avodah or in Duchan, so they would spend their time in Yericho because Yerushalayim would be very crowded. So then they would be ready to come whenever it was necessary to have them. So, or maybe but they have on the days they weren't serving stayed there. So it was the location close to Yerushalayim where people could stay and be ready, so to speak, at a moment's notice to come when their turn came. So therefore, it could be that Yericho constantly had a presence of lots and lots of people who were waiting to be involved in Avodah if at all possible, and therefore they gave them this cover to have thousands of them make up a quarter of the Maimed each week. 6,000 or 24,000. So now we're going to dash another pasuk in Divrei Yomim, Beis Chav Tes Chav Ches. This one is brought down by the Torah Shalim. V'chol hakom mishtachabim, all of the Kahal would bow down. Mashir Misharer, and the song would be sung. The V'chatzotos Mechatzim, and the trumpets would be blown. Hakol close to all this until the Olah, Satamid, would be completed. So Tani, and just expounding this pasuk of Rishim ben Elazar, Omer, Kohen V'lim Yisraelim Mashir Makmin Skor. We need to have Kohen V'lim Yisraelim in presence in order for the carbon to be acceptable. So they impede the carbon's acceptability. Rabbi Avu Moshe ben Elazar said, "Time Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is this pasuk. Kol Meshachvim El Yisrael. All the call is bowing down. That's the Yisrael. Mashir Misharer El Levim. V'chatzotos Mechatzim El Kohanim. The Kohanim would blow the chatzotos. Hakol adachlos ha'olah, all this until the olah is concluded. Hakol ma'akminas the korban, the only impediment for the kashrus of the korban. Two Yerushalmi brings down different lush in the Bavli. Bavli Tainus Chav Zayin Klishir. Chayim Nafkamina Tuva Bezeh. And then you say, I guess what you need the instruments, you just have the Levim there singing. But then he was like, I call Beishwish to Ma'akimen is low keeper, but keeper. That it's not, it seems like not Mechaper, but it is Mechaper. In other words, but the evidence it's not Ma'akim. Ach be'erchi nav nav, Lomer v'ahachi. So he wants to say that perhaps that's the case, not the case. From Erchin, it seems that it is Makiv, even b'di'evet. So that's called in footnote 26. He brings down that most of the Rishonim and Achronim say that it's l'chat chila, but not b'di'evet. Okay. The overwhelming majority seem to hold that way. Despite the two Yerushalayim's issue. Okay, says Gemara further. He learned it out from this pasuk in Bamidbar. Well, let's read that pasuk before we expound it. The Nasavim, the Sunim, Aaron of Banab, Mitop Bnei Yisrael. I gave the Nevi'im to Aaron and his children out of Bnei Yisrael. La'avodas ha'avodas Bnei Yisrael, to serve the servants of Bnei Yisrael. Ba'amoed chaper Bnei Yisrael, to atone Bnei Yisrael. V'lo Bnei Yisrael neged. There should not be a plague, an army in Bnei Yisrael. V'gesh Bnei Yisrael Kodesh, but Bnei Yisrael themselves come and into the Kodesh. So, Shama lo min hada. V'adnas labim, Nisnim Aaron Banab Mitop Bnei Yisrael. Elu halabim. That's labim. La'avodas ha'avodas Bnei Yisrael ba'amoed. Elu kohanim. So if you want to do the actual avodah, that's the Kohanim. Chaper Bnei Yisrael Zeh Hashir. That's the song is the Avodah Salbim. That's the which atones for the Bnei Yisrael. V'lo Yeh Bnei Yisrael Neged V'gesh Bnei Yisrael Kodesh El Yisrael. So they should be there, but they should not do the actual avodah. I mean, Aish Hashir Kori Kapara. Okay, I know the Hashir is called Kapara. It's not really it's not a continuation of this brisa, but rather a separate question, and it's based on this brisa. The answer is from this brisa. How do we know it's called kapara? It's not a question. Avoid Rabbi Yintach Shana Benoya said, interesting name there. There's a different year, so Yenta. And then Yenta is supposed to be a girl's name. It says Yenta in the Shinus Chos or the Barnati. Anyway, so say the name Rabbi Chaper Bnei Zashir. So you see that the Chaper he said also it's Chaper Bnei that's Shir. So Rabbi says the right that the Shir is called Kapara. Nan Shir Makiv. How do we know the Shir is Makiv? It's impediment to Kapara. Yaakov Baracham Rabbi Shim Buluta Shem Chaper Bnei Zashir. Because Chaper Bnei Yisrael. We went after this, but that means references to Shir, so Shir must be an integral part of the Kapara. Okay, so the what goes on here? Okay, so now the Gemara asks, why is before Chatzos only a minute? So the Gemara says, Hare Pesach, Hare Pascha, I guess it's supposed to be read. No, the Shemini says Hare Pesach. Hare Pesach. Hare Korban Sheisohu, but it's Korban of Am Yisrael. There's also a minhag. They said somebody has to do malacha. I can't the minhag. It's the day you bring a korban. You're not supposed to do malacha. It's a moed. Rabbi said, "Shani Hisha Ena Pesach Korban Sheisho Saman." The minhag is about the first part of the day because Pesach only be brought after 6 hours in the afternoon. So therefore, the first part of the day is not the malacha, and before Chatzos, it's only minhag. So Rabbi asked, what do you mean? Person says, bring an oila, but only after Chatzos. Not allowed to the entire day. So Rabbi Yosef says, no, this is different. Pesach, Shachar, Pesach. Because you can't bring a korban Pesach in the morning. It has to be Ben Arbaim. Therefore, there's no Samach in the morning because it's not the time yet when one can bring a korban Pesach. Opposed to Ola Shagub Shachar is Ola. In other words, when the morning is an Ola. The fact that you decide you're going to only bring the afternoon, that's your issue. But the entire day is right for that Ola, so therefore the entire day you're also do Malacha. Okay, it says Gemara, new thing, everything is contingent on a minhag. It says many things which are minhagim, such as well, I should say there's certain things which are not considered to be about minhag. So in other words, everything is contingent on minhag, and some of the minhagim are good minhagim, some of the minhagim are bad minhagim. As we know, the famous word that minhag is osios kehanim, right? So he says, "Nashi needed learn to be uvda, but ufke shubsa. Women have a custom not to malacha on Motzei Shabbos. Ain't a minhag. It's not about a minhag. Some women have adopted this custom. It's not about a custom. Ad yafne sidra. So until if they'd have a minhag not to malacha until yafne sidra says Motzei Shabbos. Until they start finish saying Atok Kadosh Minhag Tovu. That's a good minhag. Some Moshe says a different similar shot. The Meiri says the shot that Ad Yifnei Sidra until the base medrash is emptied out. Sidra was the name they used for the base medrash, so it means not until Kedusha the Sidra is finished, which is the language used for Atok Kadosh, but rather they wait till shul is empty. They don't do Melacha until people come home for shul. That's a Vav minhag. So not do Melacha or Motzei Shabbos, that's not a Vav minhag. Till Adifnei Sidra, till the people come home for shul, that's a minhag. Betray Chamishta ain't no minhag. This is those that admitted not to do Melacha on Monday and Thursday. It's not about minhag. This is even those who fasted every Monday and Thursday. They not do Melacha on the Monday and Thursday is not about minhag because that's not a tiny tzibur. Ad yispene tanesa, but if there's a tiny tzibur which is decreed on that Monday and Thursday not to Melacha until the tiny tzibur is over. That's a minhag. So in other words, if individuals are fasting Monday, Thursday, a minute after Melacha doesn't apply. It's not a proper minhag. But if it's a tiny tzibur and they declare on Monday, Thursday, so then it is about minhag to refrain from doing Melacha then. Yom Rofta. Now, according to the Korban Eid, it's talking about every Erev Shabbos and Erev Yontif. There was a minhag not to Malach and Erev Shabbos and Erev Yontif, and the Gemara says Eino minhag. The Moshe explains it's Hoshana Rabbah, the day of Rabbah, right? And people that made not to Malacha of Hoshana Rabbah. So that's not a minhag. Obviously, both of them is preparations for Shabbos Yontif, which have to take place. Mincha Se'el, but nevertheless, not to do Malacha, whether it's an Erev Shabbos or Erev Yontif, or if it's on Hoshana Rabbah, Erev Shmini Atzeres, that is it's a minhag. Yom Yarcha, not to Malacha on Rosh Chodesh, that's a minhag. It's about minhag. So obviously we already seen in the Gemara there was a lot of concern. Which minhagim are proper minhagim, which minhagim not proper minhagim. Amar B'Tzira says Nishaya the Nagan, women who have a custom, the lo mishtaya, not to do. Here it seems like not to drink, right? But neither Karbeir nor Prem Moshe learn that way. They learn that it's not to make shesi, not to weave from the time of Erev from Rosh Chodesh of Nashin Nashayna Lo Mishtai mean the of only from when of comes in minhag. It's about minhag. Why? Shabo Pascha Even Shesiyah, because then the Even Shesiyah, the foundation stone from which the world was woven, and the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed during Chodesh Av. Ma'atam, where Pasuk alludes to this, Kashashos Yaresu, that the foundations from which things were woven will be destroyed. So the article points out that you're not allowed to weave during the Shavuot Shechabo, and the women accepted even from Rosh Chodesh, which probably is the source of the Meg Ashkenaz, not to do all the minhagim of already from Rosh Chodesh of. Amar Bechina said Korad V'Horei Minhag. So he said before it was just Stam called V'Horei to tell us a minhag. Here according to Rabbi Chanina, because Rabbi Chanina is Rabbi Chanina is about to discuss a specific minhag. On the Shitin Havu b'midat Savaya, there was a shita wood, I think with sycamore, if I recall correctly. The place called midat Savaya, and Asim Shalom l'Chavei Chanina, Chavei and the Rabban. Can't ask Rabbi Chanina, I think they both be Chanina or both Chanina. Anyway, they came ask Rabbi Chanina, Chavei and the Rabban. We know Chavei is called Chavei and the Rabban because he never used smicha. That's why it's called the Chaver of the Rabbanon. So the question, what the issue was, the Korban Eid says that they were the trees which Yaakov Avinu cut the cedars for the Mishkan when he went out to Mitzrayim. So on that account, they were no use on them, and it says from Tushas Arma Mishkan Shemitchila Natam Abram L'Tzorach HaMishkan, for the purpose of the Mishkan. So obviously they're not necessarily the same trees, but they're in the same place, so they had a meaning not to use them. The Moshe said they didn't use. They had the Zeichel Churban. It says that says Shayabanui means Atzei Shitim, because the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, I guess, and the Beis Hamikdash both use Atzei Shitim. The Meiri says that then use it because over the Avodah Zarah, use them for purpose of Avodah Zarah. So whatever the reason was, they had a custom to reframe using these shita wood. So they came and asked, "Can we change our minds?" Amr said, "Since your forefathers conduct themselves as not to use these things, do not deviate from the minhag of your forefathers of blessed memory." Okay, so now we're elaborating a bit on minhagim which are based on Tos. Saying we don't know it's actually mutzar, but tobo is you think it's also. So by mistake, nishal, you can do a shelas chacham. They can permit your neder. Mutzar, but saying which you know is mutzar. V'noibo iser, and you decide nevertheless to be machmer on yourself, despite the fact it's mutter, nishal be'en matirim lo. Even if you come to ask Hashem Chacham, we're not matir it for you. I don't think it's literal, they're never matir it, but you have to have a very good reason to be matir it. Okay, that's it for today. We have next time. We wanted to bring down about the previous Gemara where or Carmen and Moshe both learned that the women, the Nagi, the Lemishtaya means not to weave. You should know, however, there is a, we mentioned that it's the minhag of Ashkenaz, so it's action or it's a ruah. He says, כבר נוהגו שלא לשתות לא בשר ולא לשתות יין ושלא לרחוץ בנשיכות ראש חודש אב, יש לנו סמך למנהג, תמיד פרק כאן למחילתין, בירושלמי, אמר רבי זירא, נשאי נגיד לא למשתה חמר, they don't drink wine, מן דאב עלי, מנהג, it's a minhag, שבו פסק שסיע. Okay, so it does bring down that there's Girs from Nisim Gon that doesn't have Chemar, but Mishtei Amra, which obviously would be more explicitly that it's talking about weaving, but it is in Orzorua. And there are several other sources which, it's like the Machsavitri, etc. So, again, according to Rishoni Ashkenaz, this Yerushalmi is the source for the Chumrah of the Ashkenaz not to drink wine and other minhagim already from Rosh Chodesh Av. I will stop here for today.